Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cherry the Geek TV. I'm Joe Vanourney. Today we are chatting with Richard Pepple, who plays Guy Gazzer Kilroy in Fightland. New episodes start Fridays on Starz, beginning on July 31st. Richard, welcome to Cherry the Geek TV.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Your character Gazzer runs a community boxing gym and has a deeply strained relationship with his son Duke. How would
hmm
you describe the emotional friction between the two of them when Duke returns from prison? And talk about building that relationship with Howard Charles, who plays your son Duke. How
Sure.
did you guys develop that relationship?
Sure. Sorry, the first part of that question was how did I?
How would you describe the emotional friction between the two
Oh,
characters when
oh,
Duke comes back?
explosive, and also a, a bit when two people can't quite express themselves. There's a lot there, and I think the initial shock of seeing one another after such a period of time, and there being a lot of unresolved issues. It was explosive but contained, if that makes sense. Um, and how Howard and I chose to approach that was to sit down and talk about the backstory and put all the elements about all of a timeline of, Duke's sort of childhood up until him winning championship and all of that sort of stuff, and then his later demise. We put all of that together and we just were able to sort of thread it through and find things that felt very real for the both of us and kind of create a whole story and a whole, not just sort of what you're seeing on screen, but sort of the preceding years, like what happened 15, 20 years before. It was quite interesting to do that with Howard because he's a very deep actor and a very dedicated actor. So it was a lot of fun to do that together.
We see a lot of physical violence in this show, but Gazzer carries a lot of internal trauma with him, right?
Absolutely.
What was the most challenging part of tapping into his vulnerabilities as a estranged father?
Um, what was the most challenging part was trying to not let the mask slip. I mean, there were times in the script where it does slip, and there are times when I think his humanity shines through. And I think because he had to be so many things to different people, it was trying to judge that and trying to make sure that, it reads as what it is, where it fits, if that makes sense. And like I said, wearing different masks at different times was a bit of a challenge, but that just made for a more complex and more interesting character to play.
Since your character runs a boxing gym, how much time did you spend with actual trainers or fighters to capture that specific unpolished energy of a local South London boxing club?
Quite a lot. We were lucky enough to have access to a boxing gym in South London by a very gracious um, boxing a gym owner who gave us access to it pretty much every week. He was on set advising us, and a few of his guys even had small parts in the production itself. So yeah, it was important that we had a real feel for not just the fighting or the training aspect of it, but just the whole the atmosphere, the camaraderie that exists within those spaces, and the loyalty that they have amongst themselves, and the discipline that they all have to sort of execute. Well, not just in fighting, but in training and respecting each other in the ring. The ring's a very sacred place, and you learn that from being around these guys and seeing the respect that they have for each other, for their opponent, and for the place itself. So yeah, that was really important to soak that up, and we were lucky enough, like I say, to have access to that.
Curtis 50 Cent Jackson is the executive producer of this show. He's known for producing high stakes, hyper realistic crime universes. How does this specific London setting of Fightland give the show a different type of edge
Um,
compared to maybe his previous shows like Power?
Well, one for one, it's set in London, so I think what people thought they knew about London might be should be a very big surprise. It's not all cricket and tea. Let's just say that. And I think audiences will be exposed to an underside of an underworld of both boxing, London and criminality itself, which they might not have been familiar with. And because they're really crude or really well drawn, should I say, characters, I think people will be very intrigued, and hopefully that will keep fans watching.
Well, fans can start watching Fightland July 31st, Friday night on Starz, with new episodes dropping subsequent Fridays after that. Richard, thank you so much for chatting with us today
Real
on
pleasure,
Series
Joe.
Geek
Thank you,
TV.
man. Take care.
Bye-bye.